Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome back. We're going to do a 2020 NFL Redraft. That's right. We're going to take a look back a little less than a year ago, and we're going to do a redraft. This was voted by you guys. I think it's a little early. Going to take a look at, how these guys are doing, about 3/4 through their rookie season. Is what it is. There are some changes, though, and I'm going to go with the original draft day order, so no in-draft trades. So don't fret about that. We're going to do the 2017 NFL mock draft next week, so that'll start. I'm going to start on that after this. But these have been actually a lot of fun. I've had a good time doing them. Y'all seem to enjoy them, so I'm going to keep them coming. We're going to have a new mock the mock Monday, and actually just today, the franchise guy just released one. And I'm a big fan of the franchise guy. If you haven't checked him out, go check him out on YouTube. But yeah, I think I might do his because that guy, he's typically top notch. I like him a lot. As well as I'm going to come out with my own mock draft on Wednesday, and we're going to follow that up with the 2017 NFL mock draft or redraft. And then on top of that, I am working on my new rankings. Those will be out hopefully in the sometime in the middle of December is what I'm shooting for. So be on the look for that. But what's crackalacking? It's your boy Broshmo. Just in case you did not know, so go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. It costs you nothing. Go ahead and do that. I promise you won't regret it. And leave a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. Also, follow me on Twitch. I'm trying to get that up to 100 followers, so help me do that. I typically Twitch on Thursdays, obviously with it being Thanksgiving. We're not doing that this week. So yeah, typically on there watching the Thursday night game with you guys and just continuing the dynasty that we're now at Ball State in NCAA 14. So that ought to be fun. Those first 3 games have been kind of rough, but we'll get there. Also, follow me on the Flick Chat app. It's the Flick Sports app. The link to that's in the description. Basically, it's sports Discord. We're in there talking about draft prospects, how the NFL season's going. I throw polls occasionally. I'm trying to get better about that. But yeah, it's probably the best way to get in contact with me if you want to just discuss sports. So check that out. I'm going to leave also a link to the simulator that I'm using for this series. But without further ado, I feel like I've talked enough. Let's go ahead. Let's dive into the nitty gritty. And yes, we got the Bengals. And you know what? I'm not gonna be too pretty with this pick. It's gonna be Joe Burrow. The guy's been phenomenal. Like, he's been brilliant behind such a line. Like, he's been great despite having a very, very poor offensive line. I would stick with the same pick. I still think he is the best quarterback in this draft. So job well done. I think if you're a Bengals fan, you should be encouraged about the future. Next, we got the Washington football team, and I am going to go in a different direction here. I like the Chase Young pick. I thought it was smart. He's been solid this year. He hasn't been like Nick Bosa great, but he's been good in his own way. But this is the first. This is where I'm like, you know what? Try to switch things up. Let's go quarterback, because with hindsight, I mean, I was talking about this before the draft that I think they might move on from Dwayne Haskins. So I'm going to go with how well he's played this year, Justin Herbert. His arm talent has just been on display. He's done extremely well. He's in the top, I think, 3 or top 5 for just his grades under pressure and like a lot of volatile stats that typically change from year to year. But he's doing a lot of things you see from you see from Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. So it's just a good indicator that there's something to this kid. He's looking real good. So I think Washington would have no problem. Their offensive tackles this year have actually played pretty well. So I still would want to address the offensive line if I'm Washington, but I think go ahead, get your quarterback of the future. Detroit. Now, our boy Chase Young is still left on the board. I don't even think twice. Some could say quarterback here. I'm like, whatever. Secondary's actually been pretty solid. I don't think Jeff Okudah was the wrong pick. I think he's going to get better. Especially, I think he's going to take a big leap forward next season. A lot of these rookie corners have struggled. But Chase Young, the dude's tools are off the charts. I think he has something like 18 pressures for Washington this season. I mean, you saw that hit, that forced fumble on the goal line against Joe Burrow. He was like, I should have been the number one. Bam! But the guy's phenomenal. I mean, the pass rush has not been there for Detroit. They could really use some of that. So I get them some pass rush. So the New York Giants, this one's interesting. I think they went with the right position. They should have been offensive tackle. And I was one of those guys that was pretty high on Andrew Thomas. And I don't want to take I think Andrew Thomas has time to be groomed into a very good tackle. But I mean, this was my thinking, because I did this in a lot of mocks with Dave Gettleman as their GM. Like, he loves freakish athletes. So I thought this pick was going to be Tristan Wirfs, was going to be Mekhi Becton. So I'm going to go back, and based on how well he's done this year, I'm going to go with Tristan Wirfs. And I mean, the guy's just been phenomenal for Tampa Bay. And he hasn't had the bit of the learning curve that Andrew Thomas is still going through. And I mean, athletically, Thomas doesn't hold a candle to Wirfs. So we're on to the Miami Dolphins. And you know what? As a Dolphins fan, I think we made the right pick. I'm going to go with Tua Tagovailoa. He's been a bit up and down this season, especially just recently getting benched against the Denver Broncos. But he's looked good enough despite the lack of talent and experience around him in that offense. So I'm still encouraged by the future. And a big reason I have Herbert going above him is because obviously the injury is a big concern with Tua. So, but still, I'm happy with this pick, with what the Dolphins did. They didn't have to trade up or anything. They stay put and get their guy. Chargers, though, I'm not going Jordan Love. Kamate. I had like a second or a third round grade on Jordan Love. So with the quarterbacks off the board, the first round worthy quarterbacks off the board, you got to look elsewhere. And I'm thinking the offensive line, because they did a good job of getting Brian Bulaga, who's been pretty good when he's been able to be on the field this season. But Sam Tevi has been awful, dude. So they need to get someone on the left side there. And I'm going to go with Mekhi Becton. You know, I had my questions about him going into the draft because, I mean, you love the athletic and the physical upside for a guy his size. But he hadn't seen many true pass sets in that Louisville offense, that very RPO-heavy Louisville offense. And that was my biggest question. He's kind of eased those concerns. Again, he's having problems staying healthy this season, and you kind of worry about that with big guys. But still, he has been phenomenal. So, the Carolina Panthers here. Bit of a bind, I guess. I don't know. Isaiah Simmons was very intriguing. I like what they've done with Jeremy Chin outside of throwing him in the slot so often. And I think they could do a similar thing with Isaiah Simmons. I really believe in Phil Snow there, the defensive coordinator. But I went in a different direction. I went with corner. I went with Jeffrey Okudah out of Ohio State. Hopefully after a year or so, I'm getting his name right, man. I feel like I'm not. But I think the guy, I mean, just think about this. This dude, his first two matchups in his career, Devontae Adams and then DeAndre Hopkins. The dude, he has, of course he's going to struggle. I think he's going to take a big leap next year. He has all the elite tools, and I expect him to be a better corner sooner rather than later. And I think the Panthers would love to have a guy like Okudah instead of having to rely on Dante Jackson, Warren Elder, Rasul Douglas. I mean, Elder and Douglas have actually played particularly well this season. Jackson's been a bit up and down. But I say go with the secondary, address the defense. They did that a lot in this draft, so we continue to do it here. Now, we have the Arizona Cardinals. I was thinking corner, but I kind of reeled back, and I was like, man, Isaiah Simmons was such a good pick, you know. But in terms of this tackle class, like this tackle class was very, very good, especially like at the top, the first three. And I ended up going with Jedrick Wills because not often do you have guys with their physical athletic upside and just their explosiveness at the tackle position. This really was a pretty darn special tackle class. So I think they go ahead, they grab Wills. they can keep him in his natural position, right tackle, opposed to what Cleveland did, and put him at left. And DJ Humphries, he's been playing great this year. Even Kelvin Beachum has been pretty solid, but I think I would rather take a Wills over a Beachum in the long run. Because let's be honest, Beacham's probably just a journeyman guy. Now we're on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to take a quick sip. Now, all of last year, it was very apparent that this Jags team was building. They weren't gonna try to win games, not on purpose. But Gardner Minshew's like, nah, I'm a competitor. I'm a competitor. So all last season before the draft, I was pounding the table. I was screaming from the top of my lungs, get this man weapons, give him a fair shot to be your franchise quarterback. Still hold true to that opinion. So I'm like, yeah, let's get the dude weapons. And I ended up going receiver, and it's Justin Jefferson's been phenomenal this season. I had questions about Justin Jefferson going to the draft because he primarily played in the slot, didn't face a lot of press coverage there at LSU in the slot. But the dude's been phenomenal. I mean, he came in, he put on some weight, and it just blew up the combine. So, you know what? This guy, I mean, he really eased some of my worries with his play this year. I think, this receiving class has been spectacular in parts. And you're going to see that because there's going to be a lot of receivers coming off the board in this redraft. But Justin Jefferson, I mean, just with the size, speed, I'm gonna go with him. You could slip him into the slot even. So I think he's just a better Laviska Shenault. Cleveland Browns, I would have loved to tackle here. I mean, you kind of look, you knew that Stefanski really wanted to address the tackle position, brought in Coughlin, and then he ended up drafting Willis. This is too high for my liking for Andrew Thomas. I think you do well in this scheme, but again, when you go back and look at maybe his athletic limitations, I don't think it warrants a top 10 pick. So instead, in hindsight, thinking this might be OBJ's last season, even maybe Jarvis Landry's last season there, I went with wide receiver. I went with Jerry Jeudy. This guy, he might not be putting in the numbers up of some of the other guys in this class, but that's because Drew Lock's his quarterback. This guy's route running is some of the best in the league. This guy is buttery, man. He puts on some double moves that are just disgusting. I'm a big fan. Doesn't need to do something. He's been a bit drop happy. And that was something in Alabama he needed to fix. But regardless, I think this is a weapon that Baker Mayfield could definitely exploit. On to the New York Jets. Tackles are off the board, so I don't really think tackle is an option here. So, I mean, like I said, Andrew Thomas, I don't think he warrants this high of a pick. Josh Jones is a guy in the back of my mind, but I don't feel good about using the 11th pick on him. So you can kind of go Bevry a different ways. You can go corner, you can go edge rusher, but then again, this edge class, I don't see anyone that's worth a top 20 pick in this class thus far. I ended up going with get Sam Darnold some weapons. I mean, yeah, this feels like the swan song for Sam Darnold this season. I mean, it's Joe Flacco starting now, but give him a fair shake, get him some serious weapons, and I'm actually gonna go with Chase Claypool. This guy's been phenomenal. I thought this guy should have transitioned or converted to tight end coming into the league because we just didn't see that dominance or separation from him at Notre Dame. I don't know what, I mean, at the combine, he blew it up. Everyone was in love with just his athletic and physical ability and for his size. And it's like, man, for me, it was like, what's not clicking? Why didn't we see that in Notre Dame? I don't know, but it's clicking for him in the NFL now. He's been phenomenal. I think he has 10 touchdowns on the season, something ridiculous. The guy has just been an elite weapon, and I think Sam Darnold would love a guy like him there. So we got 3 wide receivers off the board, and we're going to see a run here of wide receivers and secondary players. Just going to warn you here. So we got the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm not going to go Henry Ruggs. I think, Henry Ruggs, he's been decent this year. If anything, he's been scary for opposing offenses or opposing defenses. But I really think they need to address the secondary, and not with the Damon Arnett. But I'm going to go with AJ Terrell. I think he's been the best rookie corner this season. It's pretty close, but despite there's nobody around it. That secondary is crumbling in Atlanta, and he has been able to be this solid. I mean, he's had his struggles this season. For the most part, he's putting out probably the best season for a rookie corner this year. And you know what? The guy, he shined on tape. Despite whatever the heck you want to say about that national championship game, because I was constantly defending AJ Terrell. I was like, this dude was constantly in the hip of Jamar Chase. It was just Jamar Chase is so good. He was coming down with those balls more times than not. I was constantly at his defense. I think he's a great prospect, and I think he's actually a really good fit for Paul Guenther's coverage scheme there. And then on to the San Francisco 49ers. I really liked what they did with their first two picks with Kinlaw and Ayuk. But I think with them currently picking at 31, keep in mind I'm not using their traded up pick, you're probably not going to get those players. So I was kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to address the offense or address the defense? And I was like, nah, dude, let's get weapons here. And you know what? The pick was so good. I say just grab him here. Brandon Ayuk. He perfectly fits Kyle Shanahan's offense. And you won't get him later. He's been really good this year. Or at least you won't have the ability to get him later. So we're going to get him now. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're in a bit of a weird predicament because I think they have this 2-year Super Bowl window. As long as Brady's on contract, they have a 2-year Super Bowl window, at least in their mind. You know, I know Brady hasn't been playing spectacular recently, but if you're going to draft guys, you're probably going to draft guys that can make immediate impacts. So I quickly thought about the defense because Antoine Winfield's been an utter monster, but there's been a safety that has been much better than him. I don't want to say much better than him. At least coverage-wise, I think this guy's been pretty elite. So I'm gonna go with Julian Blackmon, man. This guy, athletically, this guy's off the charts. Great speed. He's a former converted corner, and you kind of saw that in his last season at Utah. Just still learning the safety position, or at least the nuances of the safety position. But man, he has been great for the Colts. He's going to be immediately plug and play there in Tampa. Fortunately, no Tristan Wirfs, and we're not going to go Andrew Thomas. So Julian Blackmon, the first real big leap in this draft, I think. Then the Denver Broncos, they weren't able to get CeeDee Lamb. I think they did the right move, though, trying to get Drew Lock some weapons. So we're going to get Drew Lock some weapons. We're going to grab CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's been phenomenal. He's been exclusively, though, used in the slot there in Dallas. I think he can play on the outside, so he could be a guy that Denver, they put opposite of Cortland Sutton, and they could slip into the slot whenever they need be. He's a good downfield threat, but he's got good after-the-catch ability as well. So we get CeeDee Lamb for the Broncos. The run of secondary and receivers, they're going to continue with this pick because I think we know Atlanta, that secondary is just atrocious. So I'm looking corner here, and this may surprise some people. I don't think so, though. I'm going to go with CJ Henderson. This guy has elite cornerback tools. He's been a bit up and down in that Jags defense, but let's be honest, that Jags defense has been pretty awful in general. I think those elite tools kind of outweigh just his play this year, because, I mean, rookie corners, you're not going to see a rookie corner come out and just have an absolutely shut down season for the most part. So again, this guy, his traits were enough to push him to a top 10 pick. So we're gonna just go ahead and grab the corner position here. Dallas Cowboys, we miss out on a lot. No CeeDee Lamb. There's a couple of corners on the board I'm kind of cool with, but I don't think there's that much of a big jump between some of the corners I'd pick here, opposed to maybe a Trayvon Diggs that they get in the second round. Because Diggs, he's picked up his play a little bit. People want to knock Trayvon Diggs, but I think when you see him get beat, it's because Dallas has been putting him in very poor decisions. This guy, he's a press man corner through, or he's a press corner through and through. And when he's getting beat, it's when he's having to play off coverage. So if Dallas would just play him up against the line, you know, let him do his thing, I think they would have a lot more success. But I'm not going to go there. Dallas's run defense really sucks. So what can we do about that? Let's take a look. I'm going to go Javon Kinlaw, man. It was pretty close between him and Derrick Brown, but I think just Kinlaw's upside, his athletic upside, his pass rushing upside is a bit more than Derrick Brown, opposed to Derrick Brown's a bit more refined in his tools. But Kinlaw, I think, would be a good fit here. He'd be able to come in here, be a good run stopper, and actually give them some pass rush there on the interior. The Miami Dolphins. And y'all are gonna think I'm just trying to get my team good picks, which can be the case, but but I'm gonna go Isaiah Simmons. You're gonna be like, why did he fall so much? So he's had a so-so year thus far, and I think teams, and I think we've even seen it in Carolina, where they've struggled to figure out how to properly utilize players like Jeremy Chin, like Isaiah Simmons, like Kyle Duggar. And I don't think that'll be the case for the Miami Dolphins. I think Brian Flores would have no problem figuring out how to properly deploy a guy like Isaiah Simmons. So that being said, he falls, but not really. Because, I mean, I was looking at, like, other places he could go. I mean, you could have maybe made a case for Tampa, but I don't think so. They're pretty set there. Maybe Atlanta, but what's his name? Foye Oluokun has played very well. If you don't remember him, he was the former Yale. I think it was Yale safety, converted linebacker. He's been very good. Maybe could have been the Raiders. Like there are teams that could have grabbed him, but I just didn't have confidence in how they would have utilized him. So we're back to the Oakland Raiders. They grabbed a much better corner, and you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's get the receiver they wanted this whole time. We're gonna grab Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs, he's maybe not had a stellar season, but this guy simply being on the field has been beneficial for the Raiders, because you always got to account for Ruggs and you got to guard. I mean, he's missed him on a few deep shots this season, but what he brings to that offense, I think, has been just top notch. And I mean, we're looking at a Raiders team that's competing for a playoff spot this year. So now we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got a pretty darn good receiver there in Justin Jefferson. So let's go ahead and address that corner position, because it's atrocious. And we're going to go with the corner that I think is having the second best rookie season, and that's Jalen Johnson. I really loved Jalen Johnson as a prospect going to the draft. I used to think his style was a bit high risk, high reward. You know, he maybe played a bit too aggressive, but the more I watched him, I could tell how calculated he was with those risks, because this guy, he's got some true ball skills. That's what this secondary in Jacksonville really needs, guys with ball skills. So we go ahead, we grab Jalen Johnson here. I think that's a great haul for the Jaguars thus far. Philadelphia Eagles, I think they were right to go with receiver here. I mean, just looking at their season, man, they've been cursed with the injury bug and whatever the heck's going on in Carson Wentz's head. But I think they were right to address the receiving core, because there were parts of it was getting older and just weren't working. You know, I mean, between Jackson and Jeffrey getting a bit long in the tooth, and then you have guys like Greg Ward and JJ Arthur-Whiteside, who, you know, that you've seen glimpses, but not anything that really fills you with like, yeah, these were the next guys up, you know. So I went receiver, and I actually went with Laviska Shenault Jr. Man, I think he's played very well. I loved him as an after the catch guy. He's got he had a great amount of broken tackles through 2 seasons at Colorado. And the thing that really separated him from some of the other guys was He came out this year, he's playing on the outside, and he showed a big leap in development, man. He showed that he can be a solid route runner, that that he can have this big route tree. I think he's really, how would you say? I think his progression has been much quicker than I anticipated. So we go ahead, we grab Laviska Shenault. So the Vikings here, no Justin Jefferson, man. I mean, you go Jeffrey Gladney, but woof. But I mean, I was thinking about corner here, you know, a little bit, but yeah, I mean, there's a few guys here, but I think none that I really feel confident as first rounders. So okay, maybe receiver, because I mean they only have Adam Thielen. So I mean, there's a few guys, there's a couple, but there's one guy on the board that really would help the interior, the defense or the offensive interior of the Minnesota Vikings, because it has been hot garbage. It's really been bad. It's been the weakness of the unit. So I went ahead, I grabbed a guy that I was pretty high on, and he's somewhere. Michael Awanu. He's the highest grade offensive lineman for PFF. He was a guy I was very high going into the draft. I thought he had some solid athleticism for his size. I mean, he's not a guy you want to, you know, just throw on the outside, though. He's done pretty well there for the Patriots when they need him there. But yeah, man, I think he would make a world of the difference for that Vikings team on the interior. So the New England Patriots, they famously traded out, not famously, I guess, but they traded out of this pick to the Chargers. We're not going to do that. We're going to stay put, and we're going to go ahead. We're going to go with value. And the reason that Derek Brown falls so far for me is because of his limitations as a pass rusher. I think he's going to be a solid player, but I mean, I don't think he's going to be anything to really write home about. I think he's going to be a phenomenal run stopper, but the guys like that you could get on day 3, you know, but he does have an impressive physical upside to him. He's very, very strong. And you know what? This is a guy that the Patriots would love to have on their defense. So we got the New Orleans Saints. This one was tough, man. And I really thought hard because I didn't want to go with Cesar Ruiz just because I don't know how well he fits that offensive line. And he has struggled a bit after a pretty good debut there. Maybe receiver, maybe get it. But I mean, outside of Jalen Reagor, I don't think there was really the speed I really wanted. And plus, they brought in Emmanuel Sanders. So I'll look to the defense. Linebackers kind of been a glaring, not a bit of a glaring hole. I mean, so much so they went out and they got Alexander from the Niners. So I went with a linebacker that I was extremely high on going to the draft. And in a small sample size, I think he's shown that he will eventually be a starter sooner rather than later. And it's going to be Willie Gay, man. I love the cat's speed. He is beyond a sideline athlete. The guy is phenomenal. What he could bring to any coverage unit there at the linebacker core, I think is phenomenal. So I went ahead, I snagged Willie Gay for the Saints. On to the Minnesota Vikings. So at this point, I'm like, all right, we got to either go corner or we got to go wide receiver. I still want a top wide receiver. And I mean, the guys I was looking there, maybe Jalen Reagor, maybe T. Higgins, but I'm going to go with Michael Pitman, man. He's a lot more athletic than I thought he was. Like this year, he's showing athleticism that I didn't think he had going into the draft. I thought this guy was just a very good contested catch receiver. But man, as the Colts slowly have trickled him into the offense, he has really, really stood out to me. And I think he is well worthy of a first round pick. The Miami Dolphins, they're next on the clock. And I was like, they have to address the offensive line. They have to grab a tackle here. So I was stuck between Andrew Thomas and Josh Jones. It was really tough, and I ended up going with Josh Jones here. just because I like his athleticism. Not saying he's extremely athletic, but it's better than Andrew Thomas's. I think he's a better technician with his hands than Andrew Thomas was. Because a lot of Andrew Thomas's appeal was, how stout of a run blocker. Like, you won't stand this guy up. He will put you down on your back. But I'm going with Josh Jones. He's only seen, I think, all of like 5 snaps there at Arizona. He's just been riding the pine for now. But in my mind, he's still worth a first round pick. I thought he was in my opinion, he was should have been a first round pick on the draft. I mean, if you're with me for the stream, the watch along, I'm here like, why is Josh Jones still on the board? Why is Josh Jones still on the board? The Cardinals draft Josh Jones. Oh my gosh, the Cardinals have the best draft class. So that's kind of how it was for me. So good haul for the Dolphins, getting Tua, Isaiah Simmons, and Josh Jones. Next, we got the Seattle Seahawks. We're not going to go Jordan Brooks here. I thought he was a day 3 guy then, and I think the same thing now. But instead, I think I'm gonna you could go somewhere on the offensive line. I mean, I don't know. I think you go better elsewhere. I don't think they really, outside of bringing in Carlos Dunlap this season, and I mean, Alton Robinson has shown some flashes. They really had nobody on that defensive line that could rush the passer going into the draft. Keep in mind, those guys weren't on the roster by the time it was time to draft. So I'm going to go with my next edge, Utier Mitose. He's actually been pretty darn good. My biggest gripe with him going into the draft was I thought he was an unfinished prospect. I thought he had great athleticism, but he was a bit inconsistent and he needed to work on his technique. Again, I still think he is a bit inconsistent, and that I think he's developing, though, pretty darn well. The guy has 12 pressures, 2 sacks on the season on only 101 pass rushing snaps. So I think that would really help the Seahawks here. The Baltimore Ravens, they grabbed Patrick Queen here, and I thought that was a very good pick. But I'm not going to do it. I think there's a better pick on the board. Now, going in, or basically a bulk of 2019, the Ravens, they used 3 safety sets. And in hindsight, knowing that Earl Thomas is eventually not going to be on the team, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snag Antoine Winfield Jr. because this guy's phenomenal. You can play him in the box. You can play him deep. This is a guy that has ridiculous athleticism. There, I mean, I talked about last coming up to the draft, there was a play that just completely sold me on him. I can't remember who it was against, but basically he bit on a double move. I think it was the running back was going on a wheel route. Bit on a double move, and he was able to turn around, catch up, and make a play on the ball. It was just like phenomenal. So I snagged him with the intention of having Clark, Thomas, and then Winfield there. But then, we know what happens to Earl Thomas. So in hindsight, I'm just looking out. Just looking out for you. So the Tennessee Titans, I think they were fine with Dennis Kelly. Isaiah Wilson I didn't like as a pick. I thought I had maybe a 3rd or 4th round grade on him. I think it was a 3rd. But I knew he wasn't going to see the field anyway. Dennis Kelly is a solid starter. Like, he's been there for years. I think he's fine. So I decided to go with the pass rush because the pass rush really needs a lot of help because we know Clowney hasn't really helped much with that. So we're going to go with a guy that hasn't seen a ton of time this season, but I really liked him from an athletic perspective. Yeah, I'm going to go with Julian Akawara. Some of y'all might be like, well, what about Clavon Chason? I thought they were very similar prospects. I thought both athletically were phenomenal, but both showed big inconsistencies in play. They'd go stretches with just doing nothing. So I'm just gonna go back to my old board. I had Akawara a bit higher, and then the Green Bay Packers. So the Packers, man, we're not getting a quarterback. Don't want to bum anyone out, but you may be thinking, all right, then you're gonna go receiver. You know what? I mean, I don't think there's a receiver here that I think is worth taking or that would be instant upgrades over Allen Lazard or MVS, and they're doing just fine with their receiving core right now. So let's go with the struggling run defense and a guy that I was very high on, and in a small amount of snaps in Cleveland, he has done a pretty darn good. I'm gonna go with Jordan Elliott. I had a 1st round grade on Jordan Elliott coming going into the draft. And you know what? He would really help out on that D line next to Kenny Clark. San Francisco 49ers. This is their second pick. They got Brandon Ayuk, obviously Javon Kinlaw, there we go, isn't there. So where to go? We could go corner. I mean, I think there's some. I mean, I was high on Christian Fulton. I was surprised he slipped. I still like Diggs. I still like Gladney as potential first rounders. But I'm gonna go with the guy that really fits the blocking scheme of the Niners. I'm gonna go with Cesar Ruiz. And I mocked him quite a bit to the Niners. The Niners, they could probably use a bit of upgrades on the interior. And the guy, for his size, he's got great athleticism. I think he would be very good in that zone blocking scheme there in San Fran. On to the last pick, the Kansas City Chiefs. And you know what? Everyone's probably like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, man. And to be frank, in my opinion, there isn't a running back worth a first-round pick in this draft. I think I said it then, and I'm going to say it now. There wasn't a first-round running back in this draft. I'm not going to go there. And plus, that was more of a luxury pick and for the Chiefs. I'm going to address the defense, because the defense really does need some help there in KC. So I'm going to go with Patrick Queen, man. He's been a bit up and down this season. I mean, he has 16 missed tackles on the season, I think, something like that. But a guy with his speed, I mean, his utility, I mean, he could rush the passer, you could put him in coverage. Like, I think this is a guy that down the line, he has flash potential this season, and down the line, he's going to be a very, very good linebacker. So Patrick Queen basically replaced Willie Gay with Patrick Queen. Essentially. Then again, that would imply Willie Gay is, seeing snaps. But Queen definitely would for this defense. So overall on this draft, I mean, yeah, there was a ton of changes. I think I went a bit heavy on the corner and wide receiver position, but I think, that has been the position that, I mean, those were the two strongest position groups in this draft class. But for the most part, I think that we only have like 11 or 12 guys new to the first round. And I mean, I would definitely say Claypool is worth a first round pick at this point. You can make an argument that Blackman maybe is a bit high, but just because the safety position is so valued at this point, you probably say Isaiah Simmons should have gone higher. I won't dispute you on that. It's ended up going that way. Jalen Johnson, I definitely think is worth a first round pick at this point. Chenault, I think he quelled a lot of concerns. Awanu, potentially, I mean, if we were going to pick an interior player, I think he would be the first one off the board. You say this is too high for Willie Gay, but he was a guy that I had in my mock, in one of my mock drafts in the first round. I kind of disagree with you there. Josh Jones was a guy I was high on. Utier Mitose has really impressed me this year. Winfield's been phenomenal. Akawara, I know hasn't seen snaps, but I was pretty high on the guy. I mean, this edge class, looking back, hasn't been that good anyway. But yeah, man, for the most part, I'm pretty happy with what I did here. And that's it for the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. This went a lot longer than I anticipated. I mean, I just got to talking, man. What can I say? But yeah, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.